Come on. Come on. Come on, let's go. Come on, come in. Go in. Oh, shit. She wanted to come in, now she doesn't. Alright. I'm gonna leave that retard out there. For now. She might come in later. Alright, so. A while back, I read To Hell and Back by Chris Pellegrino. And it's about just the survivor experiences of the Hiroshima and Nagasaki atomic bombings. And I think it's the most depressing book I've ever read in my entire life. It goes into graphic detail about what happened and what these people experienced, and it also chronicles the the build up to the American pilots actually dropping the bomb, and it kind of shows what they were doing before and after. Kind of gives their perspective. And I mean, it's a really good book, really well written. It's just written with a lot of passion and respect. And I did want to get into some stories, or just want to talk about the book, but definitely get into some experiences, because it's like I was blown away. Pretty much every couple pages, I was just like, what the fuck? Like, what is happening? And so, like, one of the first things he talks about is the bomb was dropped, and people that were really, really close to the epicenter were just like chemical, not chemicals, but minerals, and specifically he talks about iron, were separated from people's blood. And it says iron was separated from a woman's blood and compressed into the soil, and it created a thin layer of carbon steel. So this bomb was so hot that it pulled the iron from this lady's blood and turned it into steel. And that was one of the first things where I was like, I couldn't really wrap my head around what was actually going on. Let me see, this dog is acting like she wants to come in. Are you coming in? Where you at? Come on. I hear you out here. Come on. Do you want to come in or not? Alright, fuck you then. So there is it talks about doctors and how they were trying to care for these people who were just completely obliterated. Like, they were burned, they had limbs lost, they couldn't see, some of them were blinded, and so obviously when you have very bad burns, open wounds, you're going to get an infection if you don't clean it, if you don't stay clean, if you're not in a clean environment. So everyone was just getting infections from this, and eventually maggots were forming on in the wounds and on the people. And at first they were trying to clean the maggots off, because they were like, this is disgusting, we need to get this off of them, this is going to make the infection worse. And but they started to find out that the maggots were actually keeping people alive because they eat the infected flesh and they eat the infection out of the people and they keep the wound clean. And so they eventually started to just leave the maggots in, and the people were, staying alive at least longer. Let me. Little. Yeah. So, okay. God damn. And so as you're reading this, it's depressing you even more, and it's like you're trying to find something that's hopeful, and there's hopeful, stuff, and there's hopeful things that happen throughout the story, but not a lot. So there was this kid who he survived the bombing. He didn't have any scratches on him. He was like, I think it's called like shock cocooned, to where he was like he was just in the right place to where the shock didn't get him, and the building didn't collapse on him, and he seemed fine. He was playing with his friends after the bombings, and then suddenly he just came down with this really bad sickness, and his throat and his tongue swole up, and they started to rot inside of him. And people, like his moms, couldn't really be around him because he would breathe out, he would exhale, and it would smell like a dead body. And because the bacteria was just eating him from the inside out. And I'm pretty sure that's due to his immune system was just destroyed from the radiation, and it just hit the bacteria in his body started to take over. And yeah, that was one where I had to just sit. I think I just had to kind of sit for a second and take that in, because I was like, I don't think I've ever heard those words together. I haven't heard that type of sentence before. But the immune system thing was really interesting, because basically the radiation destroys your immune system. But these doctors found out that getting enough vitamins would stave off their low immune system, which, I mean, we know now, but back then it wasn't a huge thing. And they found this out just like in the middle of all this. So they were doctors that were telling people to eat a bunch, like peaches. They had a bunch of peaches, and they were giving those to people. They were giving liver to people because it's full of vitamins, and even like rat livers they were giving to people. Anything they could scrounge together, any type of vegetables they could scrounge together for nutrients, or fruit, or rodents. Or there was a horse that one of the doctors took in, that he just found wandering. It was blinded from the blast, or the flash, and he took it in and let it live in this like garden area by the hospital that he was working at. And he was scared that they were going to have to use it for food, because it was like one of his only companions, and it it was just a wasteland. It was an apocalypse, and there's just this animal, this innocent animal that he took in. It was kind of one of his only companions. And I think there's one point where he was scared the soldiers were going to come in and kill it for food, and he was worried he was just going to have to kill it because his patients were dying and needed food. and he eventually it died, and I guess naturally somehow, probably from starvation, and then they all munched on it, and it's just it just every page is just like a kick in the nuts. You're just like, fuck, dude, why? Like, why is it like this? Like, you're hoping for a happy ending, like, oh, the horse made it out with the doctor, and he took care of it for years after, but no, it died and they ate it. So, I mean, so okay, this one was the one that I still can't get out of my head. It's the one thing that I like when I think of this book. This is one of the things I think about. So there's this guy. It was right after the blast. He got out of his house, and he just started running. Because, I mean, what else are you going to do? He was like, what the fuck just happened? And he's just trying to get away from the hell that he now resides in. And he started running, and people were hearing this clicking. They thought he had metal shoes on, or some type of metal on his shoes or whatever, but then they realized that he just didn't have any feet. And he had exposed leg bones that he was running on, and they were clicking on the pavement, like it was like bone hitting the pavement, and they were chipping as he was running and cracking, and he just ran off like into the smoke, and they didn't see him again. It's like, that's another thing that I have never even thought about. I had just a dude with no legs just running on his exposed leg bones. And I was like, what does that even hurt? Like, can you feel that? If it does hurt, I'm sure it's like the most painful thing ever. But I just the clicking, the sound, like the way he described it, the way the author described it as a clicking, like you can kind of you can kind of picture that in your mind, like bone hitting pavement, and it's just the most disgusting sound. So that, I mean, this shit was just happening for days, weeks, probably months after the bombing. Just the most primal shit you can think of. And then, so another horse story. There was a horse who, somebody found a horse that didn't have any skin or fur, and it didn't act like it was in pain. It was just kind of wandering. I guess the nerves were just completely burnt off. Or maybe it was in shock. I don't know. But it's just a horse with no skin or fur. And then there was some cats that were licking the exposed intestines from a horse that was still alive. And the horse didn't really even seem to notice or care. So, I mean, it's just, how do you even react to something like that? How do you even react to that information? Anyways, there's one guy who saw a baby, an unborn baby, struggling inside of its dead mother, like struggling to get out, I guess. And that's just, what are you gonna say about that? And so there's a girl named Sadako. I think that's how you pronounce it, Sadako. And she was 2 when the bombs were dropped, and eventually she developed leukemia, and she was just, I can't remember when she developed it. I think it was relatively late into her life. Because I think she was okay for her childhood, most of her childhood, and then when she hit around 12, she started getting sick. Um, she was in the hospital and she would make these cranes, like origami cranes, and she made like 1,600 of them. And that was like what she would do to keep herself busy. And she refused painkillers because she thought that would kill her if they, because they kind of make you somewhat unconscious or kind of put you in that dreamlike state. She was scared that she was going to die from that. And she also she wanted to feel her mother's hand, like her mother's touch. She wanted to be able to feel her mother's touch. So like her legs would just swell up and she would just be all fucked up and in pain. And she was like, nah, I'm not taking those. And then she died when she was 12, I believe. Like she had eaten some rice and then she said, it's good. And then she died. And yeah, it's like, I don't know. Like, this book is just like a depression tome. I don't know. I found myself wondering, like, who would she have been, or what would she have been like if she had survived? Like, she seemed like a very kind of headstrong, smart, intelligent girl. I feel like she could have did a lot of good, but instead she rotted away in a hospital while her body pretty much consumed itself. And so, yeah, so the, hold on, what the fuck is this? So it also talks about the pilots and their, what they were doing, and it talks about, I can't remember, there's one of them named Sweeney. I don't know because there was like a couple pilots and there was some other crew, but one of the pilots, he was interviewed. I don't know if it's in this book, but he was interviewed later, and they were like, do you regret doing this? Because, you did, like, hundreds of thousands of people died, and were maimed, got cancer, just died horrific deaths. And he was like, nah, I'd do it again. he was like, nah, I had to do what I had to do. I'll do it again. And, I mean, that's pretty fucking funny, but it's like, damn, dude, do you not understand? I don't know. I mean, they were at war, and soldiers were dying every day, and they were supposedly about to invade the mainland of Japan, and like 500,000 Americans would have died. There's evidence that they knew that the Japanese would surrender, and that they dropped the bomb anyways, and then they kind of, they kind of almost ran an experiment on the Japanese population after they dropped the bomb. And that's kind of argued as why they dropped the bomb, so they could keep, so they can understand what happens when people are exposed to this weapon. So, yeah, I don't think it was necessary to drop the bombs. Maybe they could have dropped them in different places. At least not killed killed civilians. But it's that's a whole other time period, whole other kind of mindset people had. So, yeah. One One funny thing, so the author, so this book was written in 2010, but it was re-released in 2015. And the way he describes a kid's age as, so he's, okay, I'll just read it. He says, actually, let me find this quote. Also, I didn't read it on, I didn't read it like a physical copy. I read it on archive.org. So I'll put that, I'll put what the book looks like up so you can see the cover and everything. Okay, can I read, please? What the fuck? Okay, it says. Okay, it says he did not want to commit any of it to memory, and he would manage to make up a nearly successful effort at forgetting his family history until he grew up, married, and knew the indescribable heartbreak of losing his son to leukemia. Pornographically young. So, first of all, it's a guy talking about his son, or, it's a guy and his son dying from cancer. Or the thought of his son dying from cancer, and the author calls him the son pornographically young. So, what the fuck? Like, I don't understand what, like, I've never heard it used like that. It's not like it was, written a long time ago and maybe they've used words a little differently. This was written fairly recently. I'm not insinuating anything about the author. I'm not, nothing against the author. This is just a weird choice of words. And I was like, and I read it, I was like, what are we, did I just read that? But, so that was one funny thing, probably the only funny thing in the book. But it's a great book. I mean, he just kind of goes into great detail and talks about lots of these experiences, and it really, really shows you, it gives you kind of an atmosphere of what was going on, what they were feeling, and just like the sheer amount of just horror that the bombs caused. Like, it was, this is what I picture hell as. Like, this was literally hell. It was just the worst experience a person could one of the worst experiences a person could possibly go through on the face of the earth. So I mean, I've highly recommend it. So just keep in mind, you're going to be very depressed. But it's very, very entertaining, if that's even a good word. It pulls you in, just the way it's written and and just reading about this stuff that people don't really know or hear about nowadays. So yeah, go read it. It's on archive.org for free. All right, I believe I stepped in dog shit.